Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Loving obeisances unto the Supreme Being Vasudeva, who is everything there is. Janmadyasya yato anvayaditaratascha artheshu abhigyaswarat tene brahmahridaya adi kavaye muhyanti yatsurayah tejo vari mridam yatha vinimayo yatra trisargo mrisha dhamna svena sada nirastakuhakam satyam param dhimahi. We meditate upon the transcendent absolute being from whom springs forth this universe. He is present in all that exists and yet distinct from everything. He is fully conscious and totally independent. He revealed to the first seer Brahma the import of Vedic wisdom. The material creation, made of threefold gunas, appears in him as though real, like water in a mirage. Being eternally self effulgent, he is ever free of the illusion maya of the material world. We meditate upon him, the Supreme Being. Nigamakalpataror galitam phalam shukamukadamritadrava sanyutam pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam muhuraho rasika bhuvi bhavukaha. O devotees who relish a taste for divine love, Bhagavatam is the fully ripened fruit of the wish-yielding tree of Vedas, flowing as immortal nectar from Shuka Brahma Rishi. Go on drinking the sweet nectar day after day. Now we are entering the 5th chapter of the 4th Skandha of Bhagavatam. We are in the middle of the Daksha Yajna and how Daksha insulted Shiva by not offering any portion to him and not inviting him for the yajna even, and Sati, the consort of Shiva, still attending the yajna only to be insulted more, and then she glorifies Shiva and drops her own body by her yogic power. And then the attendants of Shiva therefore try to stop the sacrifice, but they are repelled by the heavenly beings called Ribhus who come forth from the fire of the yajna called Dakshinagni, which is created by the sage Bhrigu to repel them. So this is where we left. So Mother Sati has dropped her body out of great anger at her own father for insulting the Supreme Being Shiva, and the attendants of Shiva are also made to run. And now this news reaches Shiva from Narada. So Narada always is playing a crucial role in any of these events. He, being a divine sage, being Devarishi, he conveys the most important information to convey the essence of any event to the divine, to the Supreme Being, and thereby brings forth what is always auspicious, even if it goes through many calamities in the short run. So here too, Narada brings this news to Shiva that his consort Sati has dropped her body and all his attendants have been repelled. Hearing this, Shiva's fury knows no bounds. Knowing that his spouse Sati has burned herself to death on being insulted by Daksha, and also that all his attendants have been driven away by the Ribhus who appeared from the yajna of Daksha, Shiva's fury knew no bounds. So here we can see how Shiva was completely silent when he was insulted in person when he was attending the yajna of Daksha, and he left the yajna hall silently, and then he warned his consort Sati not to go. But when he learned that his attendants and his consort were insulted, when he was insulted, he didn't respond, he simply walked quietly. But when his consort and his attendants were insulted and attacked, Shiva's anger knew no bounds. So this is the sign of the Supreme Being, that he doesn't care about being insulted, but he does not tolerate the insult to his devotees. and therefore his rage knew no bounds, it says. And when the Supreme Being gets angry, that anger is also of a divine quality which cannot be handled by anyone. In a similar parallel, just as we saw the parallel of how Sita momentarily loses her sense of reason, and because of that, Ravana kidnaps her. And then eventually, when that leads to the battle and Ram displays his fury, Valmiki says that all the devas, all the deities, all the demigods are terrified looking at the rage of Lord Ram. He says, Yasya vibhyati devascha jataroshasya sanyuge. In the battlefield, when Ram displays his fury, the whole quarters, all the demigods, all the deities, devatas, everyone is struck with fear just seeing the valor and the anger with which Ram is fighting. So every emotion, when it is displayed by the Supreme Being, it is of the highest quality and that cannot be withstood by anyone. So here, similarly, Shiva is in tremendous fury, and therefore, what Shiva does is he wears matted locks, as we have seen many times, and this is described in many depictions of Shiva too, that he has matted locks, and it is out of that that Ganga flows. When Ganga flew down from the feet of Hari, it is said that nobody can withstand it except Shiva, and therefore Shiva takes it in his matted locks and releases it. So, those matted locks of Shiva, he pulls one of those locks and that shines brightly like a flash of lightning, like a flame of fire, and he puts it down and dashes that lock against the ground. And from that matted lock, from that string of matted lock, one strand of matted lock, emerges a colossal being, which is a part manifestation of Shiva. He is called as Virabhadra. And this deity form is worshipped even today by many as for propitiating anger and so on. So this Virabhadra is a part manifestation of Shiva, and he is so tall, his height touches the skies. He has many, many arms. He is dark like a cloud. He has three eyes that are shining like the sun. He has fierce teeth. He also has matted hair that shines like fire. He is wearing a garland of skulls, and he's got many weapons. So he is essentially a part manifestation of Shiva who carries all the features of Shiva, and he, with his infinite looking form, prays to Shiva because Shiva is his source, and he says, I am your part manifestation, and please tell me what I need to do, command me what to do. And Shiva, the Lord of all the spirits, he says, being my part manifestation, go and dispose of Daksha and his yajna, his sacrifice. So this is what happens now, that Virabhadra is being commanded to go and destroy the sacrifice of Daksha. By hearing this command from the anger personified form of Shiva, which is called as Rudra, the word Rudra again refers to Raudram, which is anger. So the angry manifestation of Shiva is called as Rudra, which is the form that comes forth at the end of dissolution of the universe. And now, with that anger, he is being commanded, Virabhadra, the part manifestation of Shiva. So, Virabhadra goes around Shiva clockwise as a sign of respect, and then he says, I am going to now go about and destroy the yajna of Daksha with irresistible force. And with that, he thundered most terribly, lifted his trident Trishul, and with the capability of destroying even death, the power that can even destroy death, which is carried by this part manifestation of Shiva, with that Virabhadra ran towards Daksha's abode, and he was followed by all the attendants of Rudra, who all had earlier run away, as we saw. They have all now come back, they have joined, and they are running behind Virabhadra, and there is a tumultuous noise that is arising from the run of all these headed by Virabhadra towards the Daksha Yajna grounds. And here in the place of Daksha Yajna, so geographically it is said that the Daksha Yajna happens near Prayagraj, where Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati meet, whereas Shiva's abode is in Kailash, which is further up north. And so from the north, this tumultuous roar comes towards the south, towards Prayagraj. And when this is seen, when the priests and Daksha himself and everyone who is there in the sacrifice grounds suddenly see the northern quarter covered with dust and fully becoming dark, they're all wondering, where is this dust coming from? What can this darkness be? Because there is no wind blowing, and there cannot be any robbers, because a very pious king was ruling at the time called Prachina Badi, and his story will in fact come later. So they say the king who is pious rules this land, therefore there cannot be any burglars or army of burglars coming. There is no wind blowing, it is not time for all the cows to return, causing dust. So what is causing all this dust and darkness? Are we at the end of the dissolution of the universe itself? They wonder. And but then Daksha's wife Prasuti, as we know, Prasuti, who is the sister of Devahuti, is the wife of Daksha. The three daughters of Swayambhuva Manu, Akuti, Devahuti, and Prasuti, of them Prasuti was married to Daksha, who is in turn the mother of Sati. So Prasuti knew that this is the evil consequence of the wrong done by Daksha. It is always the woman who knows exactly what their evil husband has done. In again an exact parallel in Ramayana, when Ravana brings Mother Sita, kidnaps her and brings her, he is warned by his wife Mandodari to never do this and to give her back, and he ignores. And when finally the battle happens and Ram kills Ravana, it is Mandodari who goes to the battlefield and says, "Oh Ravana, oh my husband, you deserve this because you didn't listen to me, and you are now facing the evil consequence of what you did." And similarly, here, Daksha's wife Prasuti says, what you are facing is the evil consequence of having insulted Shiva and having caused the death of your own innocent daughter Sati. It is the offense committed against Shiva and the rage that has been created in Shiva by killing his consort, which is our own daughter, is what is causing this death or dance of destruction, which seems like the universal destruction, is what she says. And what they see there is exactly that. It's as if the universe is ending, the whole of the northern quarter is becoming dark as it approaches, and it is as if Shiva is dancing the what is called the Tandav, the dance of destruction. It is with that kind of force that is being felt as it's approaching them, and by possessing a dazzling splendor, brightness, shining, and yet filled with anger and coming with rage, this whole group is attacking them, and they have reached the sacrificial ground. And as they reach the sacrificial ground, there is tremendous destruction that is unleashed by Virabhadra on Daksha's sacrifice. All kinds of bad omens appear first, and then they reach the sacrificial ground with uplifted weapons, and they first break all the beams and the pillars that are holding the sacrificial ground. They destroy all the apartments that are reserved for people to stay. They destroy the huts where the hermits are staying, the priests who are doing the sacrifice, the cottages where clarified butter and other paraphernalia necessary for sacrifices stored. All those cottages are broken. The sacrificial vessels are all destroyed, smashed. The fires are all extinguished. The whatever personalities that are there, the divinities, are all made to run away. And Bhrigu, the main sage who was officiating the sacrifice and who we saw unleashed Ribus to repel the attendants of Shiva, he was seized and bound. And then Virabhadra himself went and caught hold of Daksha. So we can see this tremendous unleashing of terror that is visited upon Daksha and his sacrifice because of his transgression upon Sati and the attendants of Shiva. And seeing all this, all the other priests who were officiating the yajna, they all ran away in various directions. And Virabhadra first pulled up Bhrigu, and because Bhrigu was the one who had unleashed the beings, as we said, to repel the attendants of Shiva. So he pulled Bhrigu up and he knocked him down, and then he took Daksha and threw him down on the floor, and then put his foot on his breast, and then he took a mighty weapon. And what Virabhadra does is he beheads Daksha. He severs the head of Daksha from his body, just as the animals that are kept for slaughter in the sacrifice are beheaded. He beheads the head of Daksha, and then he puts the head of Daksha in the same sacrifice fire from which the Ribus, the heavenly beings, had come. It's called Dakshinagni. In the very Dakshinagni from which the beings, Ribus, came out and repelled the attendants of Shiva, into the very same fire called Dakshinagni, Virabhadra, the part manifestation of Shiva, throws the head of Daksha and thereby destroys the sacrifice of Daksha completely. So, this is the essence of this chapter, and there is great symbolism behind it. There is, of course, wonderful visual, vivid description of this terror unleashed upon the evil Daksha for doing the wrong that he did in a very graphic way, which beats most movies of today. And yet, there is also the deep symbolism that the cutting of the head of Daksha represents the destruction of the ego that ignores the Supreme Being and thinks it can do everything with its own might. The ego that ignores the Supreme Being and does activities for its own profit, its own gratification, is what Daksha represents, as we already saw, by ignoring Shiva and engaging in this yajna. And such yajna, where the Supreme Being is ignored, always meets with destruction. All the plans of ego come to naught. And this is what is symbolized by Daksha being destroyed and beheaded, which is symbolic of the ego being destroyed. And Virabhadra, which is the manifestation of Shiva, the angry manifestation of Shiva, destroys him, just as the Supreme Being, when the ego takes on grandiose plans and becomes arrogant, the fierce manifestation of the Supreme Being in the form of whether an accident or whether diseases or whether the fury of nature comes and destroys things, that is symbolized by Virabhadra with furious terror destroying Daksha Yajna. So, this is the essence of this chapter and the symbolism behind it. This is why Shiva is also glorified in the Lingashtakam as Dakshasu Yajna Vinashaka Lingam, because the destruction of Daksha Yajna is an important Leela of Shiva, which, as we said, has spiritual symbolism. So Lingashtakam says Dakshasu Yajna Vinashaka Lingam means that Shivalinga which resulted in the destruction of Daksha Yajna. And interestingly and similarly, Lalita Sahasranamam, which is glorification of the Divine Mother, says Daksha Yajna Vinashini. She is also referred to as one who destroyed the Yajna of Daksha, because Shiva destroys the Yajna and the seed for destroying the Yajna is the Mother Sati, dropping her body, which resulted in Shiva destroying the yajna. So the mother in the form of Lalita is also glorified as Daksha Yajna Vinashini, and Shiva is glorified as Dakshasu Yajna Vinashaka Lingam. All this is to symbolize that the ego is destroyed by the Supreme Being when the ego becomes arrogant. So with this chapter ends. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.